back to Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and it's time for another deck tech, another Commander 2021 deck tech. I'm doing a bunch of them. You know, overall, I wasn't super impressed with the set, as I've said, but the commanders I really like. And honestly, I think that's the most important part. I think having really fun, interesting commanders to build around is more important than having cards that go well in the 99. So today I'm doing Willowdusk Essence Seer. And this is one, again, another one that I saw as soon as I spoiled it. I was like, man, that's super interesting. I immediately thought of my Ikra Life Gain deck because I had made an Ikra Life Gain deck. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting to make a Life Gain deck that has no white in it, right? That would be an interesting build around. Essentially, the idea sparked from another video where I was talking about Grim Feast, and maybe Grim Feast doesn't get played that much because there's not a lot of black-green life gain decks. So even though that direction is where I eventually went down, I went and looked at my Ikra Life Gain deck and decided, you know what, it's really not that similar. In fact, Grim Feast doesn't actually fit in this deck at all. I took it out. Does fit in a lot of those other, like Dinah, for example. Grim Feast is for sure, it should go in that deck, I think. In this deck, it doesn't work. We want to be gaining life on our turn, right? That's the important part here, okay? So Willowdusk, 1 black-green, Dryad Druid, 3/3. Pay 1 and tap. Choose another target creature. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on it equal to the amount of life you gained this turn or the amount of life you lost this turn, whichever is greater. Activate only as a sorcery. So what I quickly realized while building this deck is we want big numbers, right? It's a number of +1/+1 counters equal to the greatest amount, whether that's life gain or life loss. And on our turn, because this is activate only as a sorcery, so we have to do it on our turn, it really is a lot easier to lose a lot of life on our turn than it is to gain a lot of life. You know, we can gain a lot of life, but it tends to be mana intensive. There's a whole lot of pay life effects that you just don't have to use any mana at all. So you can just go nuts, right? Unspeakable Symbol as an example, right? That's an absolute perfect fit in this deck. We can just pay however much life we have into this. We're also putting +1/+1 counters on that creature already. And then we're going to put a whole ton more on it with Willowdusk. Yes, we have a lot of life gain. Because we're going to be paying a lot of life, we have to gain life or we're just going to die, right? So we have a ton of life gain effects, but mostly I want to be paying life on our turn so that we can activate Willowdusk's ability for a whole ton, right? Sylvan Library is another one that's just going to be perfect in this deck. It's just a great card anyway. At the beginning of your draw step, you can draw 2 additional cards. If you do, choose 2 cards in your hand you've drawn this turn. For each of those cards, pay 4 life or put the card on top of your library. So this is win-win, right? We can just draw 3 cards. We pay 4 life for each of the extra ones. So we're paying 8 life, and now we can put 8 counters on a creature with our Willowdusk. Blood Tracker is just absolutely made for this deck. I think it was reprinted in the pre-con, actually. I mean, this is a card I've used in a few decks before. It has a leaves the battlefield trigger, which I really, really like. So that means if it gets exiled or whatever, you're still going to get the effect, right? You're going to pay 2 life, put a counter on it. You know, I mean, come on, how perfect is that? So you can just pay a bunch of life. You do have to pay 1 black mana on top of it. So you can't go completely nuts, but we can pay, say, 6 life, put 3 counters on this, and then put 6 more counters on it. So now we have a giant flying creature. And also, when it leaves the battlefield, we get to draw a bunch of cards. One of the best cards in this deck for sure. Minion of the Waste. This is one that I brought up in my spoiler video because I thought it was an absolute perfect fit, right? It's 3 black, 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 and it's a scary, creepy picture. I remember thinking how creepy this was when I cracked it open in packs back in the day. It has trample, which is really important here, right? When you have a giant creature, you want it to have trample or some sort of evasion. As Minion of the Waste enters the battlefield, pay any amount of life, right? So we can pay any amount of life. We can pay 20 life here if we want, right? If we have the requisite life, which we should. Minion of the Waste, power and toughness are each equal to the life paid as it entered the battlefield. So it's going to be a 20/20 trample. Then we can use Willowdusk's ability to put 20 counters on it. So it's going to be a 40/40 trample, right? This can just be a game ender. Hatred is another one, just an absolute perfect fit in this deck, right? As an additional cost to cast this spell, pay X life. Now, normally you would cast this instant speed, right? You would attack with your creature, your opponent doesn't block, and you go, aha! And you pay 10 life, your creature gets +10/+0. Maybe you kill them, right? You can just straight up kill your opponents with this. We can't do that here because Willowdusk's ability is activated as a sorcery. I mean, I guess we could, but probably what we're going to do is do this on our main phase. Give our creature +10/+0, then put 10 +1/+1 counters on it, right? Because we just paid 10 life. Bolas of Citadel, Doom Whisperer. I mean, you know, this isn't really difficult to find stuff in black where you're just paying tons of life. Really great cards on top of it. Crick is another one. I mean, this is just a ridiculous card. It also has lifelink, so it can gain us the life back as well. I gotta put some interesting ones in here though, right? I just don't want to put the good stuff. Plague of Vermin is a really interesting one. 6 and a black, so 7 mana sorcery starting with you. Each player may pay any amount of life. Repeat this process until no one pays life. Each player creates a 1/1 black rat creature token for each 1 life they paid this way. So again, we're going to cast this on our turn. Our opponents are going to get, you know, the rat tokens too. They can pay life if they want. Go ahead, it's just going to make you closer to death. So I think that helps us, right? I think our opponents are going to be wary of paying a lot of life because they know what's going to come next, right? We're going to pay however much we want, right? We'll pay 40 life. We'll make 40 rat tokens. Then we'll put 40 counters on one of our creatures. I think it's just a really funny and interesting and powerful fit in the deck. Ideally, what we want is we want something like a Vampire Nighthawk or a Nighthawk Scavenger. That's what we want. We want creatures with evasion and lifelink, right? So what we can do is we can pay 20 or 30 life. Then we can just put all those counters on our Vampire Nighthawk or a Nighthawk Scavenger. They become giant. We swing with them, we connect, and we gain all that life back, right? So there's really no downside. Gifted Aetherborn and Eradicator Valkyrie, again, just 2 really great creatures. I like Death Touch a lot. Death Touch makes it's evasion and also makes for a good blocker. Both these guys have lifelink. Pay the life, put the counters on them, gain the life back. Leyline Prowler is another one. You know, Death Touch and lifelink. Got both. Also a mana dork. Fits in the deck perfectly. And then Birds of Paradise. We're going to use it as a mana dork, but it's also a flying creature, right? If we don't have another creature to put the counters on, we can put 10 +1/+1 counters on our Birds of Paradise. And now this is like a 10/11 flyer that we can smash people with. And you know, whenever you're making a deck like this, I tend to use cards that fit our strategy better than just the usual good stuff. Like the usual cards that you would normally put in a deck, there are so many options for you in Commander that why not go with the option that fits your deck better? So I have Vraska's Contempt and Slaughter in the deck. These are cards that they're removal and not the typical removal spells I would play, but they fit the deck, right? Vraska's Contempt exiles a creature or planeswalker, but also we gain 2 life. So I think the gaining life fits. Slaughter is particularly fantastic. I just talked about this in one of my 10 cards videos. 2 black instant, destroy target non-black creature. It can't be regenerated, but it has buyback, pay 4 life. Again, we can pay the 4 life to get the counters if we want. We got Witch of the Moors and Ageless Entity. We are going to be gaining life lots. Witch of the Moors is fantastic in any deck where you're going to be gaining life. Ageless Entity, whenever you gain life, put that many +1/+1 counters on Ageless Entity. Again, this guy can just be enormous, especially if we're putting more counters on him with our Willowdusk. And then I got Font of Agonies and Retribution of the Ancients. These are 2 cards that I just think fit really, really well with the deck, right? Font of Agonies is a 1 mana black enchantment. Whenever you pay life, put that many blood counters on Font of Agonies. So this is just going to have a zillion counters on it all the time. And then we can just pay 1 and a black, remove 4 blood counters to destroy a creature. So we're going to be doing that lots. Retribution of the Ancients, again, a 1 mana black enchantment. And we can pay 1 black, remove X +1/+1 counters from among creatures we control to give target creature -X/-X. Just another great removal spell. We're going to have so many +1/+1 counters on our creatures that if there's ever a situation, I mean, we don't want to be taking them off, but if there's a situation where someone's got an Avacyn out or something, we can kill it with this. And then if I said it once, I said it a million times, if your commander is tapping, you want to use that ability right away. So I got 1,000-Year Elixir. I also got Lightning Greaves. They're both great for that, right? 1,000-Year Elixir is going to allow us to use the ability and then untap and use it again. Lightning Greaves is going to let us use it right away and also gives our commander Shroud. So you always want to be putting stuff like that in decks. We have a ton of life gain stuff. I'm not going to name it all. Obviously, gaining life in black and green isn't that difficult. I had already made a deck that is a black-green life deck, so I really just used mostly that template. The only thing is you want to be gaining life on your turn for the most part, right? That's the thing. I will also say this, okay? There's some cards that really really fit well with this commander that for me, I just don't want to play, like Aetherflux Reservoir. I can't stand this card. I just think it's a super unfun card. Just target player loses the game is not really a lot of fun, I think. It fits perfectly in this deck, though. If you want to put it in there, I didn't. Pay 50 life. Aetherflux Reservoir deals 50 damage to target creature or player. So, of course, you never shoot a creature with this. You're going to shoot your opponent with this, and they're just going to be dead. And then the pay 50 life means you can put 50 counters on one of your creatures. Pretty ridiculous. Necropotence, also pretty ridiculous in this deck, right? I think everybody knows what this does. Again, it is a pay life sink. You can just pay as much life as you want. So now I can put as many counters on my creature as I want. And the card draw part is also pretty darn good too, right? So I've heard. And then Glacial Chasm is another one that, you know, I didn't put it in this version of the deck. It can be really, really good in the deck. Because we are gaining life, right? That cumulative upkeep, pay 2 life. We wouldn't use this like you normally would, right? Normally when people put Glacial Chasm in their deck, it's a lands deck where I can let this die. I don't pay the cumulative upkeep. It goes to the graveyard. I play it again with my Crucible of Worlds or my Lord Windgrace or whatever, right? That's usually how this card is used. But in this deck, you're just going to pay the life because you want to pay the life, right? No one can attack you, right? Prevent all damage that would be dealt to you, which is fantastic. The only problem is creatures you control can't attack. I would wait for the right moment for this. So we're going to play it, and it's going to keep our opponents off of us while we're putting tons and tons of counters on all of our creatures. And then, you know, we let it die, and then we can swing with our whole army and just probably maybe even kill all of our opponents all at once. I don't love that strategy, so I didn't put it in the deck. It does, I think, work really well, though, if you want to go that route. But that is it. That is my Willowdusk deck. Really easy build around, you know, paying life in black, gaining life in green. I mean, it really just, there's so many cards that I think fit this strategy really, really well. Again, I already had the template from my Ikra Life Gain deck, so it was pretty easy for me to throw this together. So that is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.